Hi everyone, and welcome to Off the Arrow Shelf podcasts. This podcast is aimed at people who are interested in field archery here in the UK. We'll cover coaching tips, advice on shooting, shoot reviews, and we might even manage to have some guests. I'm your host, Rob, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm delighted to have a very special guest on for this podcast episode, Harry Boyce. Now, I could introduce you rather, but I'd rather you introduce yourself and let people know who you are and how being on this podcast, really.
Well, for a lot of people that do know me, I am currently the president of the NFAS. And I know Rob through shooting with the NFAS over a number of years. Got to know Rob and Sharon quite well.
Must be about 10 years ago, I think.
Quite well.
Must be about 10 years ago, I think, or more, when we first shot together.
Yes,
it was about Castle. Was it Castle?
It would be longer than that if it was Castle.
I just remember being up there one year and having the Lancasters fly over. Do you remember that?
It's a common occurrence for us.
But no. So we were talking just before this recording started. You have changed, though, recently back to your old shooting style, haven't you? You were shooting compound when I first met you. You weren't shooting bare bow. Right?
Yeah, well, it got to a point where you just get that urge for a change. And during the period of shooting bare bow, I decided to shoot HT for a year.
That's hunting tackle for people who don't know.
With wooden arrows, took the stabilizer off. With wooden arrows, took the stabilizer off, different serving on the string, and shot it quite successfully for 12 months. And I said I would do it for a year, and exactly a year to the day, I put the wooden arrows away, dug out the stabilizer and the carbons again, and went back to bare bow. And the only way I can put it is, it was just like putting on your pair of favourite carpet slippers. It was so comfortable and so relaxed to get back to bare bow. I'd got rid of that urge to try. However, 11 years ago, I got the urge again, and I went straight from bare bow straight to unlimited.
You want to just explain what unlimited is? Because I know what the class is, but
unlimited is compound bow with scope, compound bow with scope, release aid, all the gadgets and gizmos, gadgets, the lot. I didn't intend to go into unlimited, but I bought a bow which was offered to me that it was the sort of price you cannot refuse. But it was only afterwards I realised it was an unlimited bow. But having said that, the previous owner also gave me a load of equipment to go with the bow, like 2 sets of arrows, rest, etc., etc. I thought I did enjoy shooting it. But all the while I shot it, I always had this thought, what would it be like if I went back to bare bow now with what I've learned from shooting unlimited? Because I've always said, whatever style you shoot, when you change to a different style, you always learn something from it. Shooting unlimited, particularly distance judging. Before, I would never look at it and try and judge exactly the yardage of the distance. I would just look at the target and something would come into my mind of where I've got to put the pile to aim for that target. So I never judged yardage, but obviously I had to learn it for unlimited and learnt it very quick. So of course, after 10 years, I decided, yes, the time's right now. I'm going to go back to bare bow, and got rather a surprise. It was just like being a beginner again after 10 years of shooting compound unlimited. the poundage of the bow, the fact that I'm also, 10 years older than when I put the recurve down previously and things like that. So it was a bit of an eye-opener to go back to it and realise just how much I had learned, but what I'd also lost in the 10 years I wasn't shooting the style. But having said that, I'm still enjoying it, still battling with it. So I'm
under NFAS, because this is what we're talking about.
I do apologise. I keep forgetting this. Bare bow is recurve bow, rest, pressure button, stabilizer, nothing else. You can use either Mediterranean style release or 3 fingers under, one or the other, not both. You can't change during the shoot. And I always used to shoot 3 fingers under the knock.
I think most bare bowers did. I think Sharon was unusual. She shot split fingers, but that's mainly because she shot bare bow, but she actually has always been really at hunting tackle or flat bow. And you've got to shoot. It's always been really at hunting tackle or flat bow. And you've got to shoot that style. But there's no string walking or face walking allowed in bare bow and National Field Archery Society.
It's one anchor, regardless of which anchor you use, which release you use. It's fixed anchor.
3 fingers under.
Yes, I mean there are some that used to shoot it, and some that still do shoot Mediterranean release, and they shoot very well. It's just the way they shoot, and they've adapted to it when they first struck off and got on extremely well with it.
So, bow you're shooting now then?
It's a Hoyt formula riser with formula limbs. Our friends at Wales Archery are very clever. Initially only rang up to inquire what was available, what was on the market. Before I know it, I've got a bow and a set of limbs in the post on the way to available, what was on the market. Before I know it, I've got a bow and a set of limbs in the post on the way to me. So I've got to give them 10 out of 10 for the sales technique.
Well, I've got to say Wales Archery have been fantastic recently because I've been playing around with carbons. And I've had a real problem with carbon legacies and the inserts on the carbon legacies, and I gave them a ring. And their knowledge is amazing, and they're immensely helpful with sorting out some different inserts to accommodate the piles, and the new ones are working really, really well.
Well, for us, it's easy, 4.5 hours. But to us, if we need to go to the shop and sort anything out, it's worth the journey. I've always said that if you deal with Wales Archery, they will sell you what you need. If they haven't got what you need, they'll tell you where you can get it from. Their aim is to get the best, tell you where you can get it from. Their aim is to get the best out of you with your archery rather than keep clogging up the till sales.
Yeah. I think there's a few companies that do the latter. Excuse me, and there's a few that are, I don't want to say reputable, because that's not very fair, but I think some of them will spend a lot of time with you.
Yes.
And I'm not going to, we won't go down the route of saying, oh, well, these are really good, or these are really bad, because I don't think it's very fair. But
no, we can all have good and bad experiences with different places. It all depends on the.
So you're shooting carbons. Are you an Eastern fan, or are you not too bothered? You just find what works best for yourself?
When I shot bare bow, I was consistently an ACE fan, simply because of the performance I got off from them, the results, the speed. Due to the costs involved now, and being realistic in what I'm capable of, I now shoot hollow carbons rather than the ACEs. And you're going to ask me what I shoot, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of them.
I struggle, when people ask me, oh, what are you shooting now? And it's like, I struggle to remember which bow I'm shooting now. So I'm alternating bows, trying to build myself up. So it's kind of like, I'll pick up the Samick today, I think. But, well, as long as it's working for you, and as long as you're enjoying it, I think that's, well, as long as it's working for you, and as long as you're enjoying it, I think that's the important thing.
Well, what I've found is that with the pile that I shoot and the weight of the shaft, I'm getting results that are on par with what I used to get with the ACEs. So although it's hard work, it has made it somewhat easier coming back to bare bow with an arrow that shoots very similar to what I used to shoot before, but consistently lower on price.
Yeah, there's a lot now, different manufacturers when it comes to carbons are dramatically different, but the actual delivery, if you like, of the actual quality of the arrows, they do what you need them to do when you need them. And just spend some time tuning them into your bow and to yourself. So sorry, I'm coughing a bit and I'm croaking a bit because hay fever's really hitting. So I apologise to the listeners there. Talking about that, you undersell yourself because I've known you for years. You do an awful lot for archery. You do a lot for the society. You said you're the president. It's not your first time around that ballpark, though, is it?
No, I'm currently on my 4th year of second term. Usually the term is a 3-year term. But in this instance, because being up for renewal clashed with another of the senior committee members, which is not a good thing, I extended a year to enable each of the 3 top officers to be up for renewal on a yearly basis. Sorry, how can I rephrase this? Each one per year rather than everybody at the same time. Prior to that, I had a 6-year layoff, and then prior to that, I did 2 3-year terms. So currently, I've done 10 years.
And seen quite a lot of changes in those 10 years. And so...
Yes, but then things do need to change with time. I've often said, when you look back at history, particularly British industry, the things that didn't change are no longer with us. So we all need to change in some ways, but it's a question of how much and how.
I always think of it as trying to develop, isn't it? It's that kind of developing.
Yes, and you're always catering for a new audience because you've always got new people coming into the sport. Some come from shooting backgrounds, some don't. Some don't obviously know of the NFAS of years gone by, so they're always looking to something new to keep everybody happy at the same time, or as many as you can, that people enjoy what is their hobby and their pastime.
For those of you who don't know, NFAS is now NFAS. Never sure where we should say NFAS, NFAS. It's one of those discussions around a campfire it's one of those discussions around a campfire that takes place quite often at clubs. It's coming up to 50 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 50. We're in our 50th year now, so we're celebrating that obviously this year.
Yeah, with the one big event, which has already got. For those of you who don't know, the one big event is 2 days, archery, 4 courses, 3D targets, and as I said, we've got over 700 people, I think, booked on that so far. That's in a couple of weeks. So you must be really proud to be in that position.
Well, I'm proud to say I've been part of it. I can't say that, it's all down to me. It's not. It's down to a number of people working together as a committee, making it happen, and I'm just a small part of it. But I've been in the NFAS for, I think it's 35 years this year. So yes, I have seen an awful lot of changes over that time. An awful lot of faces come and gone, but by the same token, an awful lot of faces come and gone. But by the same token, an awful lot of faces that we first met 35 years ago that are still part of the NFAS and still out and about shooting today.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? That I certainly found is it can be an incredibly social society. It can be very. I certainly found is it can be an incredibly social society. It can be very. You can build friends. You can build relationships with people. and they stick with it for years and years, and you get to know them even when they stop shooting. You still keep in touch and stuff like that.
I come from, when I was in my school years and after my school years, I was into motocross. But I've also been into shooting for a number of years, shotgun shooting, small bore rifle shooting, and 10-meter competition air rifle shooting, which I shot for the county consistently for a number of years. The big thing that I see about archery as against the rifle shooting that I used to do is the social side of it. You make friends in archery, and once you make friends, it doesn't matter archery. And once you make friends, it doesn't matter how long it is before you see them again. In our case, with some of the international people we've made friends with over the world, it can be 5, 7, 10 years. But as soon as you meet up, it's sit down with a cup of coffee, cup of tea, a beer, whatever. And it's like it was only last month. I found with rifle shooting, it was more of a case of what rifle you shoot, what club you belong to, what car you drive, what you do for a profession. You're an archer stood at the side of another archer, and you can know somebody for a long period of time, years, and yet still never know what they do Monday to Friday. It never enters your head because very often the question never comes up. So to me, archery I've ever done, and I've done a few in my years, believe me, the only one that would ever come close to that, I think, was the motocross, where no matter what happened, if your bike failed, somebody would loan you a bike, they would loan you parts, they would help you get the bike running or whatever. But archery to me is the most fun in all my years. And it's something that that side of it never changes. You make friends, and the friends remain so for many, many years.
You have shot internationally in the past. It's not just NFAS you're known for.
Yeah, Terry and I, for 21 years, we shot the IFAA International Circuit, which is the governing body of the English Field Archery Association. But we felt after 21 years, we'd finally done our bit, and it was time to relax and enjoy holidays rather than use the holiday time to travel to the shoot, do the shoot, and then travel home again.
And having something outside of archery in doing things. Yes, I can understand that. I can understand that a lot. So, bearing that in mind, what's your other hobbies? I do know you've been working on the garden for the last couple of years.
My wife has a list of jobs to be done around the house and the home. And I'm not sure how it works, but it seems to be that every time I knock one off the top of the list, there's 2 more added to the list. So there is always work for me around the house, around the garden, whatever. I built my own workshop down the garden. And it's nice when I can get in there. I just focus on what I'm doing, whether it's making cabinets for the house, kitchen cupboards for the kitchen, repairing things that people have brought for me to repair, including toys for children and things like that. Shaping my own little world with the radio on in the background, playing music, and just get stuck into whatever task I'm involved in.
I think everybody needs that kind of escape time.
Yeah, well, it's uncanny how during COVID we spent an awful lot of work on the garden, and time and money on the garden, including something like 14 square meters of patio paving.
Yeah, I did see the photographs on Facebook. I did see it's like, oh yes, I've one. There's a bench seat as well, and a few other things, and there's a bench seat as well, and a few other things, and pergolas.
Oh yeah, she's quite chuffed with the things that I do and what I make for her. She basically gives me an idea of what she would like, whether it be a cupboard for the kitchen, something in the garden, and then I think about it and I adapt it and make it something a bit, shall we say, something a bit more. And then that's it. I get set to then building it. And very often I have no plans at the start. I just have an idea of, well, this is what I'm going to do. How am I going to achieve it?
Yeah, if I'm making something and I give dimensions, it metric at times when I'm measuring something up, because it's the one that's the more accurate at that point in time. So like one dimension might be like 30 inches and the next dimension might be like, oh, okay, I need 350 mil. And it's like, how can you do that? And it's just the way my head works, because I know that's exactly the right size.
I try and convert one to the other that I struggle. So I either work in one or the other, but I can work in both quite comfortably.
Yeah. That's it. You see there, you're getting insight into the person as opposed to just the archer. So if you need cabinets doing, you're the man to speak to. But I think Terry might kill everybody who actually a cabinet for the next shoot, please.
Oh, I often get people when they see things that Terry's put on Facebook that I've made and saying, could you make me one? And I'm thinking, no, I haven't got the time really. I'm not the quickest at building things, but at least when I complete it, I'm happy with it. Time in constructing something and getting it right first time, than spending the same time building it 3 times.
That's interesting, because I always build something, but I then see how the next version can be a little bit better. And it's like kind of iterative improvement. I do that with making me wooden arrows. It's like, oh, right, okay, improvement. I do that with making me wooden arrows. It's like, oh, right, okay, this has worked this time, but I think I can improve it by doing this next time.
One thing that when we did the kitchen, because I just bought the board in, made the cabinets to suit whatever area or what design Terry wanted, and people would say, well, what are you doing? Say, well, I'm making kitchen cabinets. Oh, I can't be bothered with flat pack. I hate doing that. Until I explain, no, I buy a length of board, 2.4 meters, 4 meters, whatever, and I make the cupboards from scratch, and they just suddenly stop and the jaw exactly what I'm doing. But there's a lot of people that do it. It's just one of those jobs. You can either do it or you can't. But the more you try, the more you succeed. Same with anything.
But it's having the time, because, as you said, you're building cabinets, you're doing stuff around the house, and you're still shooting, and you're still doing stuff around the house, and you're still shooting, and you're still being the president. And this is all voluntary. NFAS isn't paid for. This is all voluntary time you're giving up.
No, this is some things that some of the members don't understand and don't realise, no matter how many times we try to explain. We are all volunteers. We don't get paid for the work we do. We do it because we've got that interest in archery and in the society, and want to see it succeed and go forward. Yes, we get paid and want to see it succeed and go forward. Yes, we get paid any personal expenses, but other than that, we don't get any salary for the job. People think that we work full time. We don't. Some of the committee are retired, but they do archery as well. Some of the committee are still working full time. I myself am still working full time, although I'm past retirement age. And you just do what you can, fit in what you can, and if you're struggling, you ask for help. There's people there to help.
I think it's been interesting, sort of like post-pandemic, like NFAS would survive and whether people would go back. But I think it had, anyways, it certainly survived. As you said, we're going into the 50th year. And I'm seeing shoot numbers increasing again. Well, certainly the ones I've been going to.
Yes. Last year, it was, if I say a poor year for attendance. People were all, shoot organisers were concerned of the numbers of attending their shoots were nothing like they were pre-COVID. But this year, for some reason, it's as if everybody's hit the button and they're all off. We're now seeing shoots where before, where they were struggling to get people to attend, they're now having waiting lists in case people cancel, because they've got so many people want to enter. The shoots are full, big turnout. So hopefully that's watching television or, you know, things like that. And archery is just one of those things that to a lot of people is so different. And the social side of it, as we've already discussed, is such a good thing that people get addicted to it and enjoy it.
And it's interesting you say it, because I think some people have tried it after the pandemic, as you know, getting off the sofa and trying something different, then found that they've liked it and gone down that route. Because you have got a lot more new people, but there's still many of the old faces. From what we were talking about at the weekend, a couple of the marshals at Long Eaton shoot, was how the shooting classes have changed. Though is the fact that what used to be the really big classes, a lot of people have gone into like traditional bow hunter now, from like the bare bow and some from the HT, and being the primary, I don't say primary ones, but the popular ones. I think that's the better phrase.
Well, I've seen this all the time I've been in the NFAS. It will change year on year. One time a day when we first started archery, freestyle, ladies and gents, was a very popular class. And then over a period of time, you just found there's the odd one or two in the entries to a shoot. But now it's coming back again. It's like fashion. It all goes in cycles, and it always comes round again. Goes in cycles, and it always comes round again at some point.
I've never been fashionable, so I'll just wait for it to kind of coincide with what I normally wear.
The important thing is not necessarily what style you shoot. It's important that you're still shooting and you're still there in the number.
So if you had a crystal ball, what do you think we'd be moving to next then? Or what do you think's the next big changes?
Good question. This is where you decide which hat to wear: diplomatic hat, personal hat, president's hat, whatever.
Well, you can do all three in mind, and you can decide which one. It's up to you.
Personally, I would like to see archery continue to increase, but not with the fact that we're building up more and more style. Archery continue to increase, but not with the fact that we're building up more and more styles. I think really, if we're not careful, we'll have watered down, no matter what society you belong to. If you keep adding, watered down, no matter what society you belong to. If you keep adding different styles and styles, you water it down until in the end, people can get rather complacent, I think, with it. And if you're not careful, you've got a minority of shooters. And if you're not careful, you've got a minority of shooters in a class rather than a number of probably well-established and good archers. And another aspect of it, I'd like to see more youngsters involved in it. 20 years ago, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have all these things that youngsters could do without even getting out of their bed. There's so many distractions or attractions, whichever way you look at it nowadays. There's so many things for the youngsters to do. Way of life now, I think everybody's, trying to look for something nice and easy. And I don't think the younger generation are any different. If they can do something nice and easy that's enjoyable rather than hard work, they're going to do something nice and easy, I don't think we ever will see youngsters back into archery as we did. I don't think we ever will see youngsters back into archery as we did 15, 20 years ago, until we haven't got the distractions that they've got now. There's so many things they can get involved with other than sport, because I do realise there's a lot of youngsters involved in it. But I think there's so many distractions apart from sport now that they can get into so easily. and it's so much easier to do.
That's a fair statement, because I think there are more things to distract them, whether it be sports or activities or there is a lot out there.
Well, I've been told that children are the future of our sport. I can understand what people are saying when they say that, but from my point of it, the future of our sport are the 40 years plus sports, are the 40 years plus. Very few children come into archery and stay with it their entire life. A lot of them stay with it for a while, then disappear. Some stay with it, disappear. Once they get over the newfound things of girls and drink, or whatever, they come back in their late 20s, 30s, or even later. So really, for me, it's the 30, 40-year-olds plus that we should focus on for the future of our sport, because maybe.
Often I've found that parents get involved with the kids when the kids wanted to try it, and the kids stop, but the parents will carry on being involved, and sometimes the kids will come back, sometimes they won't. But it's similar to what you're saying there.
Yeah, I've seen that on a number of occasions. And sometimes once the parents start, the children decide they don't want to do it, because, as ever, if the parent tells them they're doing something wrong with their style or their technique, they never listen. Joe Bloggs, another member of the club, can say exactly the same thing and say, do you realise you're doing so-and-so? And the answer is, am I? As ever, children tend not to listen to the parents, but we're quite happy to listen to somebody they don't really know. I've seen that over the years, but in general, it's just that they find other things to do, probably come back to it later in life. But the parents that took it up whilst the youngsters were doing it then tend to carry on with it for a number of years.
You think we'll ever, because there was it last year before, talk about working with Archery GB a bit more and communicating with them, because they came to one of the AGMs, if I remember correctly, didn't they? They did.
Yeah, we're still talking with AGB. But first of all, let me just say that we're not looking at joining AGB. We're just looking at two groups working together to be a bigger voice heard by anybody that needs to hear it, whether that be government or whatever. Our AGB are much more experienced in some things that we've never possibly come across, or had much dealings to do with it. But by the same token, Archery GB, AGB, recognise that we are such a force with unmarked shooting, particularly 3D shooting. They realise there's a lot they can learn from us. As well as there's a lot we can learn from them. And by working together, surely that's got to be good for the sport of archery.
And that's the point, isn't it? It's what you said earlier. It's about promoting the sport to as many people as possible, but also we were talking to a couple of people about concerns about crossbows and how they're being used inappropriately at times, and whether the government will bring in legislation. With NFAS Archery GB, we all are promoting the hobby, aren't we? We're all trying to do the best for the hobby. We're all trying to get people out there shooting. And if we can learn something and talk to one another, not be them versus us type thing, but...
Well, to me, it doesn't matter which affiliation you belong to, what sort of archery you do. We're all archers. We're all trying to hit a target, whatever the size, shape, colour, the target may be. Our aim is to hit it, and hit it well every time. Surely by working together without governing each other, that's got to be better for the future of archery. We've all got something we can learn from each other, and surely that's got to be for the benefit of the people that are doing archery. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It will be a slow progress because we've each got to find out from each other how we can learn and what we want to learn, etc., etc. But we are looking together, working together for the benefit of archery. But as I say, there's no chance that we're looking at affiliating or joining with AGB or EFAA or IFAA, whatever the governing body will be. We're just looking at being able to, whatever the governing body will be, we're just looking at being able to be one big voice together for the benefit of whatever style or whatever affiliation you shoot under.
So taking that one step further, if you had a magic arrow where you could like target one thing and get it out there and be really successful, what do you think that would be? Would that be promoting the society? Would it be just promoting archery or...
At short notice, without having time to think about that, I think it would be promoting the archery, because I still say, doesn't matter what affiliation you belong to, we're all archers in archery, that then they can decide themselves whatever association or society they want to belong to or shoot under, whether it's target archery, field archery, or whatever. Once they're on the road, they can find their own route of where and how they want to. They can find their own route of where and how they want to go and do and whatever they want to shoot. But it's getting them started. Particularly, you hear a number of people that come into the NFAS in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, and even older, and say 30s, 40s, 50s, and even older, and say, I never knew this existed. I wish that I found it 20, 30 years ago. And to me, that's what I would see myself doing or like to do in the future, is promote the sport of archery.
Not just the shooting as well.
Is promote the sport of archery.
Not just the shooting as well, though, because you've got some people that come in and they suddenly find that coaching is something that they really, really enjoy, and they want to take that as far as they can possibly go. But it's then, it's having something that they enjoy, and I think that's why I've stuck around. I've had my issues and problems where archery is concerned over the years, but I've stuck with it. I'm still here. I'm still doing this. I'm still talking to you. You're still talking to me, which is amazing. But I think that's it, is that aspect of there is to be so closed-minded. One of the things that I get upset about, is that kind of them versus us aspect, because we were talking again at LIFA about how some people kind of go, oh, well, they're the compound archers. They take ages on the sight peg. They take ages on the sight peg. Oh, those are the traditional archers. They take ages hunting for arrows, and never the two should mix. And it's like, well, actually, we're all trying to hit a target. We're trying to hit that 3D at whatever distance it is. Yeah.
Well, a little story for you. One year when we first went from 4 courses at the 3D Championships down to 3 courses, because when we shot 4 courses, 2 courses would be for wooden arrows. There'd be longbow, American flatbow, hunting tackle, and then 2 courses would be carbon or aluminium arrows, your compounds, etc. But then we had to go down, due to the numbers entering, to 3 courses, which suddenly meant we had to mix wooden and non-wooden arrows together. And due to the number of entries for one 3D shoot, we had to enable us to get as many archers as possible on all the courses and longbow together on the same course. We got absolute grief on that announcement right up until the day. You're going to get murder on the archery course. People are going to fall out. They're going to fight. You're never going to recover from this. And actually, to finish was the longbow and unlimited course, the compounders. So the myth that one takes longer than the other because of this or because of that, it's not really true. Much to everybody's surprise, they were back and had even started to walk back in from the wood. And it was so funny to see all these longbows and compound archers walking across the field, coming back into admin. You could have took the bows away. It wouldn't have mattered. They were all laughing and joking so much of the day they had. It didn't matter what bow they were carrying. So it's a question, really, if you forget what bow you shoot and just think about enjoying yourself, it's amazing how the day goes quicker and is more enjoyable.
Somebody once said to me, "His archery is a great way of interrupting a conversation around a wood." Somebody once said to me, "His archery is a great way of interrupting a conversation around a wood."
I think archery is a good way of having an entire conversation around the entire wood. Because, as I say, the bit that amazes me, you can know somebody for a number of years and you never know what to do away from archery. Ask and find out, which then gives you another conversation throughout the day. So it's surprising what you can find out and what you hear just by asking.
So what now for you? Is it all guns, heads down for the big 50?
Obviously, it's going to be... I've attended at 3D championships and national championships, which, to those that don't know, it's paper faces rather than 3Ds, where there's been over 600 entries. And that was quite... There's been over 600 entries. And that was quite a familiar sight years ago in the NFAS. In my earlier days, I've often been at shoots where there's between 500 and 600 or just over 600 archers. I can't honestly say 600 or just over 600 archers. I can't honestly say I've been at an NFAS shoot with over 700 archers attending. So I'm looking forward to it with trepidation, because the bigger the number of people, the bigger the problem if something... The bigger the number of people, the bigger the problem if something goes wrong. And obviously we're all working, trying to ensure that we've got everything covered and everything will run smooth and everybody will have an enjoyable day. But for me, as the president of the NFAS, Saturday morning, to address such a large gathering of archers in this country, I've shot world and European IFA championships in this country, but not with that number of archers in one place at any one time. So that's going to be a proud moment for me, being in the position I'm in as president. But it's not just me, it's all the committee that are working hard to ensure that the shoot goes well and everybody enjoys themselves. They're all proud to be part of it and still be part of us. Proud to be part of it and still be part of a society that's been going for 50 years.
There's a huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes that I don't think people realise when it comes to even just doing local courses.
No, I mean, I've been on a committee of a certain amount of work when you're involved with that. And you think you know how it works when you step it up a gear and go to a larger group. But I've seen it time and time again where people join the committee thinking that pre-thinking they know how it's going to work and what happens. And sometimes they sit there wide and been putting on club shoots one day, as probably once, twice, 3 times a year. That's one thing, but to take it to another level and working behind the scenes with a national governing body, putting on national championships or looking after the society across the country, it's championships or looking after the society across the country. It's certainly different and a much bigger ball game, if you'll pardon the expression.
So in the championships course, they're virgin ground. So you're cutting in the paths, you're trying to work out where you're going to be going, what you're going to be doing. And that's just the course layers. That's not the administrators behind the scenes trying to make sure everybody's got the right number of entry cards, or they're in the right class and they've got shoot guardian or child or vice versa. So yeah, there's a huge amount that goes on.
Well, just on the admin side alone, when you think that if we've got 100 scorecards to be categorically sorted age, style, men, women, etc., for that weekend. And when you walk into that admin tent, they have to be in the right place, on the right table for you to go up and get them without having to search 2,800 cards. They're not written out by hand like they were years ago, but you still have to program the computer to print out all those labels. Still have to program the computer to print out all those labels. You still have to have a set of hands, a pair of hands, to put those labels on the cards, which you know only too well with assisting Sharon with the work she does for the entries for the nationals and things, with the work she does for the entries for the nationals and things. It's all the little things like that that nobody ever sees, but it's there when they go in the admin tent to pick up. How do we get all the equipment on site for the members? You know, the admin, the toilets, the catering, cordoning off area for car parking, camping, etc. It's all jobs that have to be done to make the event run smoothly, and all jobs that have to be thought out beforehand of how we're going to do it, what we're going to do with it, and what's the back. No, yes, we're shooting in the middle of summer. Be nice to be out there in t-shirts with the sun shining, but we could also be out there in wellies in 4 inches of mud.
That's never happened. No, that's never happened.
May not in your lifetime, Rob, but believe me, where we couldn't even separate the scorecards when we came in because they were just like soggy blotting paper. It rained so hard consistently all day long. Even at the end of the weekend, admin couldn't sort them out. They had to who had actually won, who hadn't won, etc., what the scores were, and make something of it, and then forward on the trophies at a later stage. Because we would have been there till gone midnight trying to sort that out on the Sunday evening.
I remember the one year at Osmaston when it started raining on the Sunday and having the scorecards just turned to mush. So yeah, and let's hope for good weather. Put the order in for good weather, please. We've got 3 bank holidays in May this year, so come on. We've got to have one weekend that's going to be nice weather on those bank holidays.
Oh yeah, we all hope for good weather, but obviously we have to have a backup plan just in case. As Richard found out with the national championships up in Durham the other year, we couldn't even get vehicles onto the admin field, let alone the campsite or anything like that. So the admin field, let alone the campsite or anything like that. So plan B, plan C, plan D, they all went out the window. I think we was on plan Z before we actually found something that we could work with.
Yeah, I remember that vividly, and pushing numerous cars. But on Sunday, there was no chance of getting them into the field at all, was there?
No, I'm still convinced there's a picture circulating somewhere of what they call the President's Cavalcade. 2 4x4s strapped up to the front of my car, and we're all 3 vehicles spinning wheels in the mud.
Yes, there were some people there with their cameras. I do remember that. I do remember. So we're coming to an end of this. We've been chatting for a while. Is there anything you'd like to sort of say as a kind of a final statement, either as you, sir, or as your role, or as your role, or
I think we're all guilty of this. Sometimes we see something, we read something, we listen to something, and we straight away have an opinion. Whereas if we stop, just think for a few, change somewhat. It may have done, it may not. But very often that opinion, you suddenly start thinking again and thinking, well, maybe no, maybe if, what if that, what if the other? And bear in mind that what you're reading or what you're hearing is probably coming from somebody that's, maybe just take a little bit more time and think before we all end up arguing and falling out, which has happened on a number of times with various people. And then afterwards thought about it again and thought, maybe that was wrong. Again and thought, maybe that was wrong. You know, I think we all need to take just a little bit more time to think things through before we jump in and make hasty decisions.
Oh, very wise words, that is. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I do think that is very true. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I do think that is very true.
Well, that's anybody that knows me will know that's always been my philosophy. Even before I joined the NFAS, if somebody comes to me with a problem, I listen. I step back. I think about it. I step back. I think about it. If there's more than one side to the story, I'll listen to however many sides there are to the story, step back, think about it, then step forward again with a decision. And it doesn't matter whether it's something at major level within the NFAS or something. I always think about it first, because sometimes you don't always think clear, you don't always think properly in the first instance. It's very easy to come up with ideas and then think, oh, I wish I hadn't done that.
You find, I was asking for an ending statement, I find that people tend to talk to you as the role now rather than you as Harry?
Yes, there's a number of people that talk to me as the president. I mean, it's very common on a Sunday morning when we're attending the shoot. The wife and I will be at the car putting the bows together. The wife and I will be at the car putting the bows together. She's got her bow together. She'll say to me, I'll see you later. She'll go off to the practice bosses and she knows that with people coming up and saying, can I ask you a question? Can I have a minute? What's the ruling on this? What's your opinion on this? It's going to be at least 30 minutes before I get from the car to the practice bosses to try and have a practice myself. There has been occasions where they've done the call up before I've even got to the practice bosses. So I've not shot an arrow before I'm going out on the course. But to me, that's their 2 mils. I find it so easy to read in an email what you think has been written. You've interpreted what you think that person has meant rather than what the person has actually written and the manner it's been written in. It's never the same as talking to somebody. It's never the same as talking to somebody face to face. You call somebody an idiot on the computer, they take offense. You call somebody an idiot that you stood alongside to shoot, and they'll turn around and say, well, I think you're ugly as well. And you both end up laughing. Because you can read how that sentence is coming over. So I don't begrudge anybody 2 minutes of my time, because it's always easier to talk face to face and get your point over easier than doing it by email or phone call. I've had phone call, the person could have got their hands down the phone. I'm sure they would have been round my neck at the other end. And all I've done is sat and listened, but probably 3/4 of an hour later, instead of them being angry, aggressive, upset, whatever, they've said, well, thank you very much for your time. See you soon. Bye. See you soon. Bye. And I've put the phone down and I thought, what do they want? And it was just, they wanted somebody to listen to them. So the job, you just got to be patient, be prepared to give people 2 minutes of your time if they require it. Sometimes you don't have to answer the question. You just look at them and sometimes you don't have to answer the question. You just look at them and they realize they've asked a stupid question. But each situation is different.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it again.
It's not a problem.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to get into the Arrow Shelf at yahoo.co.uk, or you can check out the website offthearrowshelf.com. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for listening. Hi everyone.